An absolutely devastating evening for the Timberwolves. Starts off immediately 8 minutes into the game. Anthony Edwards, who was playing pretty well, 8 points, turns his ankle and would leave that game, not return. You see him in a walking boot on the bench later on. And him being out is just detrimental to this team. He's absolutely the most important contributor and factor to the success, both short-term and long-term, of this team. So depressed very early on in that game, and it didn't help seeing 3 missed wide-open layups, 2 by Naz Reid, 1 by Kyle Anderson, as well as 3 missed free throws in that first quarter. And it started as another one where we're playing well. We have a moderate lead where it feels like a lot less than we should have, because we're just not as good as we should be, which is the basic crux of the Ragnaretla curse, which absolutely follows us to this day. Also in that first quarter, Taurean Prince would set up to show you the kind of night he was going to have. He had 3 fouls in 3 minutes, and I tweeted, I'm like, this is the worst I think I've seen Taurean Prince play in a full basketball game, and he proved that all the way through. It was really hard to watch. Felt like he really go through mode the entire time and was just sloppy. He couldn't even really dribble tonight. It was constantly just like fumbling off of his leg. He was just so awkward. And I'll talk about the detrimental play he makes at the end of overtime, as this would go into 2 overtimes for the Wolves' loss in Chicago. Tonight, we really had about 3 players that seriously stepped up in Anthony Edwards' absence. First person I want to call out for being a stud is Jaden McDaniels. Gets his career high at 25 points. Was dynamic offensively. A lot of clutch buckets. 7 of our 10 points in that first overtime. Additionally, Mike Conley would have his career high for threes in a game with 8 3-pointers. And he was 4 of 4 from 3 to start that game. And that's what really helped build our lead early on. And we would have a lead just about all game, led by 13 in the second quarter. But the Timberwolves have blown the second most 10-plus point leads in the NBA now at 15. And it just shows the immaturity of this team. Even after Conley's back here, I mean, we still can't withstand it. But his usage is still incomprehensibly low. On a night that goes into double overtime where we don't have Anthony Edwards and he's that hot, he only gets 14 shot attempts and 6 assists. He was averaging 7.7 assists per game in Utah this season. And with the Wolves, it's only 4.9. Almost 3 less assists per game. When we seriously need some more offense and a ball handler and playmaker on this team and some usage to be eaten up. I don't know, maybe Chris Finch's system is just where point guards go to underperform and be underutilized. It just is mind-blowing to me. Last person that really stepped tonight was Jordan McLaughlin. Hit 2 threes tonight, was overall incredible and would not be rewarded with minutes because Chris Finch doesn't adjust to shit, and that's one of his weakest parts as a coach. Really does not feel out a game whatsoever. You maybe expected me to say that Gobert stepped it up tonight looking at his stat line, but I felt this was the ultimate good and bad Rudy game. I mean, he had 4 first half turnovers, 5 for the full game, and he also would foul out of that one. Sure, he had 21 points, 19 rebounds, 5 blocks. Amazingly, I wouldn't even consider this one of Gobert's best defensive games. It's kind of like he made the big play in several scenarios, both on like the O-board side of things, as well as getting block shots, but he was bad in a lot of ways too and made a ton of mistakes. Also would Rekeeve, another technical again tonight, and I can't blame him for a lot of that too. They were calling so many soft calls that were just atrocious. Another disgraceful crew of sucks. They just had so many blatantly wrong calls on both sides, even though they were heavily favoring Chicago today. And it was just miserable, their presence on the court as always. Some others who would struggle in the game would be Naz Reid and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Both of them had some strong spurts in the third quarter, however, were pretty bad the rest of the game. Naz blew a ton of layups tonight and just could not hit from 3, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker really struggled with his consistency. Timberwolves entered the fourth quarter up 10 points, but of course that doesn't mean anything really with this squad. Game was super close basically through the entire fourth quarter, and Gobert, with a minute left, I think the Wolves are up by either 1 or 2, decides to drive from the 3-point line to attempt a lefty layup, which I absolutely knew was going to miss. Luckily, he gets bailed out with a foul call on Vucevic. I hated that was what we were going to in that scenario. And what do you know? He misses both free throws, which is the most predictable thing in that scenario to everyone except for maybe Rudy Gobert. Because second free throw, he's sitting there holding his follow-through. Nobody boxes him out, and he never goes and attempts to try to offensive rebound while the ball was nowhere near going in. Somehow the Bulls would answer all that idiocy with like an 8-second violation, giving the Wolves the ball back. So 20 seconds left. The Timberwolves are tied with the Bulls. They have the last possession. Ends up being a double dribble on Kyle Anderson, as they just cannot figure out what to do whatsoever. Kyle Anderson gets another triple-double today. His performance was a little shaky despite that, but he was certainly one of the better performers and logged 51 minutes, as we also have a back-to-back coming tomorrow in Toronto in a game that comes up extremely rapidly. In the first overtime, it was Jaden McDaniels getting a bunch of big buckets, Conley hitting his 8th three, and the Wolves were actually up by 2 points with 23 seconds left, and the shot clock was off, so we could dribble it out, or they had to foul us to stop that from happening. Taurean Prince gets the ball. The person who just looks like a tornado fucking of turnovers all game long and just isn't locked in any way. Takes a couple dribbles and throws it to nobody. The Bulls pick the ball up and get a transition bucket on the other end, tie the game, and we go into double overtime. Just so frustrating. I said that we really had to consider Jordan McLaughlin being the 5th player out there along with the starters, and then once Rudy Gobert fouls out Nas, because he was really the only person playing steady and good in that game, and his main weakness is usually size and shooting, but he was 2 of 3 from 3 tonight, and also the Bulls were going with a small ball lineup anyway. Finch instead goes with people that were not hitting threes in Torian, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Nas, that were really sloppy tonight, and it would certainly cost us. Nickeil Alexander-Walker would also seriously struggle in double overtime, misses a free throw, gets dunked on, has several fouls, and it really came down to the Bulls having people that could make extremely contested jumpers over and over in DeRozan and Levine. DeRozan 49 points tonight and was unstoppable in the mid-range and gets 18 free throws. Has anyone on the Wolves even sniffed like that many free throws in a game this year? I don't think so. Maybe Ant got like 14 one game, maybe somewhere around that. But it's almost inconceivable a Timberwolf player getting that many free throws in a game. Zach LaVine also 39 points, hitting a lot of contested shots. We just didn't have the personnel to match all those difficult looks that they were hitting, because a lot of times we had pretty solid defense. They just made tough shots. This Botero scenario, and when we don't have Anthony Edwards out there, we just can't match it. Okay, that seriously sucked, and probably a lot of suck going forward, depending on Anthony Edwards' injury, but not looking great. I guess it was just silly of me to think we could beat a team with Patrick Williams and Patrick Beverley on St. Patty's Day.